Morning, viewers. Welcome to today's live streaming. I am your host, Ozo. Today, we'll be discussing the topic violence, the law, and justice. The news of violence have inundated our internet, especially that which is gender based. Today, we'll be looking at what the law says about violence, gender based violence precisely, and how justice can be achieved for the victims or survivors as the case may be. Then gender based violence is a violence directed against a person based on their gender. That's what gender based violence is. Yes, I understand the fact that violence goes on in our society, especially the state Nigeria is in at the moment. You hear news of kidnapping, banditry, extortion, and so on and so forth. But this live streaming today will center on gender based violence. Last week, the news of the girl who was raped, killed, the girl who was searching for a job that was raped, killed, and buried. Or is it the minor who was defiled? Or is it the case of the girl who was severely beaten by grown up men, naked, and they even videoed it? That's the height of it. Gender based violence is evil in all its forms. So today we'll be looking at the laws talk that touches gender based violence. Nigeria have been signatories to lots of treaties that forbid violence of all kinds, especially as it relates to one's gender. In Nigeria, we have laws too that prohibit all forms of gender-based violence. Some of those laws are the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, enacted in the year 2015, the Child Rights Act, enacted in 2003, the Law Against Sexual Harassment in Tertiary Institutions, Protection Against Domestic Violence Law of Lagos State. We have the Criminal Code and the Penal Code of states. These are laws that are precise, that their provisions precisely state that all forms of gender-based violence are prohibited in Nigeria. Gender-based violence like assault, rape, defilement, stalking, abandonment, and so on and so forth. The Child Rights Act is very particular about child marriage and all forms of violations meted on the child, hawking too. But still, these violations persist in our society. And that makes me wonder why. Why will a grown up person have sexual interest in a child? A child that is yet to reach the age of maturity in Nigeria, 18 years. Why will a person feel that getting sexual satisfaction is by depriving another person the right to consent to that sexual activity? These are all shades of wrong. And why will a person be battered or assaulted? And we have these things going on in our society. Perpetrators are no other person than people who live with us. They are people all around us. Yesterday, a case of a child less than 12 years that was raped and defiled by a neighbor, a grown-up man. It makes me wonder, like, where is the satisfaction? Like, where is our morals? If we should keep the law aside, where is our morals? The law is very clear on this. The punishment for rape and all sorts of violations are clearly written in our statute books. But still, these violations occur in our society. Does it mean that enacting laws is not enough? And I would say yes, enacting laws it's not enough. It's a step, but it's not enough. Everybody should be sensitized and conscientized on the reason why we shouldn't be perpetrators of violations. Everybody should be aware that this is all shades of wrong. If a father should rape a daughter, or a mother rapes her son, or we allow these things to thrive in our society, we end up being like animals. And we are humans, for crying out loud, and we should be different. Gender based violence is all shades of wrong. In a sane society, this shouldn't even be heard. Then we have cases of rape apologists, people who look for reasons to justify violation. Be like, oh, she disrespected her husband. Oh, she's her husband. She's his wife, and he should have sex with her, with or without her consent. Or why is she dressed that way? Didn't she walk there with her legs? These are all excuses, and we give perpetrators more reason to carry out their outrageous activities. It's alarming the rate gender based violence is increasing in our society, regardless of all that is being done to reduce it. So, enactment of laws is not enough. We need to effectively implement these laws. Like I said, a case of child empowerment was reported yesterday. And the truth is, the perpetrator will be arrested, yes, but he will be put on bail. He will be granted bail. JUSO is on strike. The court is currently shut down. So, what is the fate of survivors? How can justice be achieved for them? How can they feel that the society actually stood up for them? Or is it the situation where you report case of a missing person and the police tells you that they need 48 hours to pass before they carry out investigation? Seriously, 48 hours is a long time, especially depending the circumstances surrounding the person's disappearance. 48 hours is a long time. It's enough time to perpetrate any form of violence the perpetrator planned to do. It is even enough to clear up any evidence that will point towards his or her person. So our society needs to sit up. Our security agencies needs to sit up. We need to realize that if we don't stop this now, we too might be victims someday. Your child, your sister, your mother might be a victim someday. And I don't think it's a fate that you wish on anybody, even if it's your enemy. Justice can only be said to be achieved if perpetrators are brought to book, if perpetrators are allowed to face the law, if perpetrators are given prison terms due and they serve it. Things that impede this political will, economic will, and so on and so forth. But we all need to stand up. We need to report perpetrators. Don't say, oh, he's my father. Don't say, oh, she's my mother. Don't say, he's my brother. And then you cover evil and put another person's life in danger. Let's not forget that we are all humans and we all need to be protected. And if our society is not safe, then we all are in danger. So we all need to put our hands on deck. We all need to arise and seek justice for victims or survivors of gender based violence. Let's stop making excuses for perpetrators. Let's stop edifying or looking for ways to say, no, it's our fault. You don't blame victims for what has happened to them. Nobody plans for evil to befall them. So let's stand up together. Civil societies, faith-based organizations, government, citizens, let us all stand up and say no to all forms of gender-based violence. And we'll have a safe country and a safe place for the next generation. Thank you very much for joining today's live streaming. We hope you join us next time. Don't forget, I'm your host, Ozo Thank you very much.